Greetings. My name is Reverend Dr. Jeff Hood. I serve as spiritual advisor to Anthony Sanchez. I am joined by David Ballard, who is the investigator on the case. On December the 20th, 1996, Juli Busken was abducted from her apartment complex in Norman, Oklahoma, driven to Lake Stanley Draper, where she was killed execution style. For years, there was no suspects. There was very little evidence until a number of years later, 6 or 7 years later, authorities claimed to have a match, a DNA match to Anthony Sanchez. We believe that that match was erroneous, but we further believe that the evidence presented to support that match was even more erroneous. We know that a cell phone was taken from the car of Juli Busken. Authorities tried to connect that phone to Anthony Sanchez. Why is that connection implausible, David?
Well, first off, with the cell phone record, there was one number that they believe was called after the time that the crime would have occurred. That was one number off from an ex-girlfriend of Anthony Sanchez or an associate of some kind. But the number didn't go back to that person anymore anyway. And there was other calls made hours after the crime had occurred that went to, at that time, 1-900 numbers. And they were all very short calls. The problem with that is no one can say the phone was never recovered, and they can't say, I mean, that phone could have been dropped. It could have been, no telling where it was found. But there was also issues with the fact that, during the time that this crime would occur, that the phone doesn't appear to, you can't be in two places at one time.
Mm.
So that's kind of an issue there. But also, when you look at cell phones, and I do digital evidence and extractions, and I've testified to cellular locations and things like that, when you look at a number, there can literally be up to 50,000 numbers within one number of each other, or even more, depending on the time frame and activity and population. So again, we're back to a piece of evidence that can be a supportive evidence, but is in no way, standalone fact-based evidence. And it doesn't match up because, again, the phone wasn't recovered, and you can't place it at the crime scene. You can't place it with Busken, that it was taken from this point and found here. I mean, that morning, Juli Busken was going back and forth from places. She had met a friend that she was taking to the airport, come back. That phone could have ended up anywhere.
Mm.
But in this case, it just doesn't make sense that you're kidnapping and assaulting somebody and you're going to stop and make phone calls or try to. And I don't remember if they're exactly the same time, but because again, the time of death and all that, that's going to be estimated. And it was, I think, 20 degrees that day, which is also going to be a problem for timing the time of death and the time intervals because of the cold weather.
Mm.
So it's that piece of evidence really, in my opinion, has no real weight of any kind.
If the phone numbers don't fit, you must acquit. Free Anthony Sanchez.